Right. Good morning, and welcome to Dualitea Podcast. I'm your host, Ash, and I'm here with a very special guest. Welcome, John.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank Kenny for doing all his work to get all this together here over the years. He started with a Polaroid camera, I heard, one step, and look at us now. We're on
Yeah.
top of the world, so God bless him. And a shout out to the angry Staten Islanders out there. God loves you. If nobody told you they love you, I do. Johnny Clark. Thank you. Thanks
Yeah.
for having me, and
Of course, of course. Thanks for coming onto the podcast. I know that every time we pretty much have a conversation, it's like our own mini podcast, and it's cool that we're letting the world kind of get a peek into, you know,
right.
those conversations. And
Hopefully, we could all learn something today.
I think the hardest part was us to try to figure out, well, what are we going to talk about? We were going back and forth with a bunch of different topics.
For those out there, this took years. This is years in the making,
It
so
is years
we'll
in the
try not to
making.
screw it up on you.
I'm
You know.
sure we'll do just fine. But getting into the topic of
Right.
you know, common sense, the lost art of common sense not being so common.
Oh,
A
there you
few
go.
people had put some comments on the I had put up our flyer, and a few people gave their perspectives of common sense, and I was realizing like, wow, like there are so many different perspectives of even what common sense is in the first place.
It's
Nonetheless,
crazy, right?
it just goes to show everything. Like we were just talking right before we went live. Um, Everything is perception, in our own internal process of like how we're perceiving something, usually coming from, for better or for worse, our own experiences,
Right.
you know.
Well, you know what? My generation, I'm 65 years old, right? My generation, I always used to hear people say, the elders, quote unquote, they used to say, that that kid, that you're either born with common sense or not, right? And I didn't really think about it much then, but now it's like I believe it's learned behavior. You
Mhm.
know, like sometimes it's forced. Like you ever hear the story with a toddler? They'll burn his hand on the burner because he keeps turning the burners on.
Mhm.
So that's learned behavior. Don't
Right.
put your hand in the fire. But that's an extreme example. But I think it's learned behavior. It's
Mhm.
trial and error. It's making mistakes, and like and you figure it out. Like that's what I think about that. But
I think it's also like when we have the experience of, I guess, for lack of better words, um, I want to say empathy, but more so just like like sympathy, empathy, like just understanding how we and our actions affect other people. When I think about that, I think of that as common sense, because I'm like, oh, well, why wouldn't you, if you go into a room and you're yelling, why wouldn't you think about how that's going to affect other people? But I've come to learn in life that that isn't common sense, that that is not everyone's experience. Everyone doesn't think about putting themselves in other people's shoes. I think I would strongly encourage people to tap into that and to do that. I find that you can better understand people around you when you do that. But I didn't realize that that wasn't just like by default a human thing, right?
yeah,
Like that really painfully opened my eyes when I came to that understanding, So it's, with that being said, like, you know, in my perception of common sense, I think that it's a combination of, like learned behavior, like you were saying, like learned behavior. Like maybe we didn't know that something we did had an effect. But then once you know, to honor that in the next moment, like honor that, okay, like, well, I don't want to affect people poorly or affect people negatively if I can help it. So my common sense is to act differently, and correct maybe my behavior that was acting like you were saying in the speech bubble, that in the post that I put up, where in our previous conversation, where you're saying using your mind over your emotions solely.
right. 'Cause you got a lot of human nature. We're generally good. We want to be nice and stuff like that. But it's people. You know, they let their emotions run away, and they don't stop and like breathe and think, how is it affecting this other person? I'll tell you something. I'll tell you a story. When I first worked in Manhattan, I was in the water department. I worked in Manhattan, and I had this perception, and this is an example of perceptions are not always real. I had to go work in Harlem, right? So at the time, I was like, man, am I gonna get jumped? I gotta carry a gun? I was a little afraid, right? And I think it was like the first week I was there. A young gentleman walked out of his house, young black guy walked out of his house. Hey, how you doing? Good morning, and this and that, and believe it or not, he doesn't know this, but them couple of little kind words, I started relaxing.
Mm-hmm.
So things that are little, could have a profound effect sometimes. So I try and be kind to people, you know what I mean? Because it doesn't cost anything. And you don't know what they're going through. They could be having a really rough day. Like you see people angry driving on the thing, but it's not the road. It's something's going on in their lives. You know what I mean? And I have empathy for them now. Where I used to get angry back, and that goes nowhere.
Right.
You're only really
Especially
hurt.
with road rage.
Yeah,
It's not going nowhere.
You're only really hurting yourself.
Right.
Like when like I learned to relax. It took me a long time. I mean, when I was young, that's why I say it's learned behavior. I learned to, be kind to myself, which was, not easy to do. I was always bashing myself because I wasn't perfect, and we're not perfect beings. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's okay. You know what I mean? It's okay.
I think a lot of people can relate to that, just not bashing bashing ourselves because we're not perfect, whether we admit it outside of our own head or not, or if we're even consciously aware that we're doing it. Sometimes we, a lot of times a big, huge indicator that we are, in a toxic relationship with ourselves is when we tend to be in toxic relationships outside of ourselves, in my opinion, where it's like, a lot of times, our abuse is coming from within, we don't even want to hang out with ourselves. We're just being so negative because of that perfectionism that you're talking about.
We're our own worst enemy. You know what I mean? And I'll tell you something. I had a, when I was in the Navy, right? I'm going to talk about Navy stuff because I spent 10 years there, you know what I mean? So they had a class. They did it for CEOs of companies, right? And they did it for the Navy, too. And what they did was they had a simple ring toss, right? And you had to throw a ring, against the wall. It was 500 points, 300 points, 100 points. Everybody said, 500 points, I could do this, I got this, right? Nobody got it, right? So the point the instructor said is, don't have false expectations.
Right.
You know what I mean? Don't, you know what I mean? Nobody got it near there, you know what I mean? So give yourself a break, you know what I mean?
And that's the thing, as humans, we're like we were saying before, we're just trying to figure it out, right? We're gonna say the wrong thing. We might look awkward doing something. Doesn't mean we shouldn't try. Doesn't mean we shouldn't, I think that there's just this, we hold ourselves to such impossible expectations.
Impossible standards.
And we talk ourselves out of doing the things that we want to do the most. And I see that happen with so many people where they've wanted to, get into art or get into more abstract things, but they're afraid of how they're going to be perceived if walking in that light, and
they're afraid of failure too, which is common sense is ridiculous. You have to. That's how you learn. You know what I mean? Like when I used to, I'll give you a simple example. Like when I used to do sports, I used to always play somebody better than me. I wanted them to be much better than me, and I got creamed all the time. But eventually, I became competitive and whatever. So listen, it's okay. Most people failed. A lot of rock bands, they were getting tomatoes thrown at them in small venues. And listen, if they quit, we wouldn't have Aerosmith or whatever band. So. Don't give up on yourself. It's a learn. You're learning. So
I was just having this conversation a few days ago. I was playing chess with one of my friends, and you know how I've been trying to play chess a lot recently. But I was playing chess with one of my friends, and I was saying how there's a video game that I was playing. A friend of mine wanted me to play this basketball video game. It's called 2K, right? And I was never really interested in it. And then one day I was like, all right, I'll play it. And when I tell you, I said, the worst thing you could ever do to me is let me win. Don't let me win. You can beat me for years, for days, for months. But if you let me win, I lose respect for you because now you didn't see me as a equal opponent.
Yeah.
And
You're
like
not
you're
gonna get
trying to give
better.
me, yes, I'm
You're not
not
gonna get
learning.
better. You're not being helpful.
So
All
I
right.
had to say that to like a few of my friends, and then long story short, when the way I used to get beat is like 100 points, like crazy, like just horribly beat, until I started winning. These people played for money, and then eventually I started
Whoa.
beating them, and they were like, "Oh, great job, young grasshopper," But then I had other people that didn't witness my growth from like really being horrible to getting really good. And I've had people say to me like, "Oh, I let you win," out of their perfectionism when seeing that happen. And it's like, so I say this story not only to reiterate what you said, but also to talk about the other aspect of like, you know, when you're that person who is used to winning, right? And someone else comes along that you might have not anticipate, it's a
Oh.
good dose. It's a good dose of
Yeah.
reality, because sometimes we
Mm.
need to get knocked off our horse. I find that like for me, I tend to come from the spectrum of like that build, like that underdog and build up, but then sometimes I am also naturally good at things. So it is good to
Right.
get
Right.
knocked off by horse as well. I'm not exempt to that. I think that each form of I guess a dose of reality is good for whoever it's being called for, because at the end of the day, like, as much as we want to think we know everything or think we can project what's going to happen next, it's good to get that unpredictability that reminds you that like you don't know shit really, like no
You,
matter
you,
what you know or
you know.
think you know.
Yeah. Yeah. See, that's the thing too. A lot of people they just think they know everything, and they like have to be right. You don't have to be right. You can be wrong. You know what I mean? Nobody knows everything, and opinionated people sometimes they they know nothing about nothing.
Right.
It's just going on, and then I don't know. It's crazy, but you know how I got good? I used to box her dad and play football with her dad and another a good friend I had, and they were much bigger guys than me, right? So I used to get the crap beat out of me, right? And but the funny thing is, like she was just saying, when I played football or fought guys my size, oh boy, it was a cakewalk. So, sometimes it takes a little bit of pain and
Right.
loss. And I could take a punch, I could tell you that, even to today. So, I learned something. But that's how you learn, though, failure. So
Right.
don't be afraid to fail. If you got a dream, go for it. Even if you can't do it all now because of work and this and all these distractions. Like just set aside time. That's the commodity. Like you young folk, the biggest commodity we have is time. And when you and I try not to overextend myself, but I'm guilty of it sometimes. And then I get all stressed out and I pay the price. But
Right.
it's like when you think about it, there's 24 hours in a day. All right, 24 hours. That's all. 8 hours you're sleeping. Just say around
Mhm.
generally. 8 hours maybe you're working. That leaves 8 hours left. So that's not a lot of time. You know, I mean that's not a lot of time at all.
Right.
So I try and set aside time for myself, just for me. It's not about money. Like I walk on the beach. Just I don't know, 2 hours at a day, just me time. Be selfish like that, because
It's
your time's
important to be.
important. Like
No one's gonna jump into your world, into your reality, and set up that time for yourself the way we need to. Like no one's
right,
going to do it. We have to provide that for
you
ourselves,
gotta take it.
or else you feel disconnected from yourself. In a
What is it all
society,
for, right? What are you working for then, right?
right? And it's
Right.
like in a society that's constantly glorifying distracting ourselves, whether it's on our phones, social media, TV, even just like even if you're reading a newspaper, like just all of the distractions of pay attention here, pay attention here. Don't ever pay attention to you.
Oof.
Pay attention here and pay attention here. Let's take this let's take your focus and put it somewhere where it benefits us meaning the powers that be of, controlling and things of that sort, but I won't go down that rabbit hole right now. But it's just like we live in a society, and the longer time goes on, the more distractions are personalized to affect us and take away our attention. Why? Because our time is one of the most valuable things we have. And if we're wasting it, that's beneficial to a lot of, a lot of corporations, because convenience, right? Convenience. Like if we don't have time to cook for ourselves, then we're going to buy pre-made food. That's going to support that business model for that company. That common sense, to bring it back to the topic,
Yeah.
right?
Listen, your
Critical
time's important.
thinking. Yes.
You're important.
Right. Right.
You know?
And you deserve to give yourself your time.
Okay. And there's people, I don't know how they do it. Your young generation, with all these distractions, and they're staring at their phones all day long, looking at worldly events, worried about war. Most of our lives is in 2 square miles, So I try and focus on that, and I try and be kind to people, and you can make a difference, just little things like that guy did in Harlem to me. He made a big difference. He probably didn't realize it, but he did.
Yeah. And it's just literally extending a moment of kindness, and regardless of where you're at and what you're doing, like choosing that makes a huge difference. I know that there's been plenty of uncomfortable situations that I've been in where somebody just extended a little bit of kindness that made a huge difference. Like, and like I used to go to these meetings in Manhattan, and I was so nervous to speak. And I remember like the person next to me being like, "You're good, like, don't worry," like, and just saying something like that. And that made a huge difference because I was so nervous when it was coming around to like, when I was going to speak and I was going to say my name. I was so nervous. And, just getting to that place where I, even though I was scared and uncomfortable, just acknowledging, they say that there's triggers, right? That like make you like, put you off a little bit. But then there's something called glimmers. And like those glimmers are like, put you on in a way. So it's like, that was like a glimmer where I'm like, oh, this is why like I love humans, like where someone cuts you off and like, this is why I fucking hate humans, and then you have a glimmer where it reminds you why we love each other and why what this is all about.
We're social creatures. I mean, we're not meant to be alone or live in our own head, And but this like I was telling you before, this is my opinion now, but I think like you have to understand your emotions, so you could live a somewhat peaceful life,
Right.
And if you see an angry person, they're generally afraid of something. So there's fear behind that, and could be fear they're gonna be late, could be fear that I don't know, their boyfriend's leaving and their girlfriend's leaving, whatever. But you think about it, it's a horrible way to go about your day, living in fear. But and then with the phone, like you have access to all these worldly events, and the news bombards you with all this I stay away from that, because what I don't like to tell people, you have control. Take control of your life. You don't have to listen. I don't listen to people. I stay away from negative people. If you're negative, the way you say go in and out, it doesn't even get in the first year. Because I pick up on it, I'm out of there. I'm not going to stay around negative people. You know what I mean? It's you know what I'm saying? It's just crazy the way that is. But anger is fear.
I think people make a lot of excuses for that. The entire premise of anger is fear, but it literally, when someone is being angry or is being negative and is exuding long periods of negative emotions outward, without regard, or maybe sometimes with regard, I find that a lot of people make excuses, naturally, because we're humans and we go through different processes. And there's a time where it's like, okay, I can empathize with this person, maybe somebody passed away, something happened, tragedy happened, whatever the case is, they're going through it, they don't know how to process their emotions clearly. Anger is the best resort that they feel comfortable feeling. Cool. And then there's also the aspect where it's like, okay, well, how much is this affecting you? Like, are you caring about yourself too? Where it's like, I find that those boundaries are really hard to draw with people, where it's either like people cut completely off from that person exuding that behavior, or they're so coddling and enabling to that behavior that this person's not even seeing that it's wrong,
Right. Then they'll justify it in their own mind, and they'll continue that behavior. So,
right.
I mean,
So it's a fine line to walk across when it comes to that, And then also, the more psychologically you learn to understand. I find it could even be a little bit more tricky if you hold it personal. If you don't hold it as personal, you can more objectify it. But literally off the premise that anger is fear, right? Just turned inside out, or anger is hurt, whatever the case is, like turned inside out. It is absolutely a person, I think it's a person's more comfortable default emotion to navigate. A lot of times when that's going on, the person is more so, if they are even thinking about it, it's intellectualizing the emotions. So then we have the spectrum of someone who feels their emotions so much where they're like out of control and just emotional all the time. And then we have a person who is like, I don't have time to feel that emotion, so I'm just by default grumpy. And we find a lot of that too, where there's like an unhinged emotional aspect. And then there's like the grump where it's like, I don't have time to feel into whatever is going on because I have to keep running in this rat race in order to keep my head above water.
It's, it's crazy. It's natural to be angry and fearful. They're natural things. That's what, but it could really jam you up, or it could really help you. I've talked to older, here's an example of how fear could turn to anger, could turn to bravery, right? If you ever talk to like an old, like World War II veteran or something like that, or even me, like most of them were terrified. They said, this guy, he gave him a brave medal and everything like that. He'll tell you they were terrified. Mm-hmm. And anger went to rage, and and they did what they had to do. They feared for their life, and they went, balls to the walls, so to speak. But so it could help you too, but it could really, like if it gets the rage part, mm-hmm. It's not helpful, to yourself, and it's just a horrible way to go through your day. You know what I mean?
I think it's like literally it pretty much only applies in survival where it's actually beneficial, to transform in that way. Maybe there's other spaces too, and it's like, because in those conditions, I can't even imagine, because I have literally no life experience in anything close to that. But objectively, it's just like, I can't even imagine what you have to endure internally in those intense experiences. What kind of levels of survival most people might not ever come to even near,
They're not even thinking about it. It's quick. Spectrum. It happens so quick.
Right.
They're not even thinking about it. It's a reaction.
Exactly. And that's in its most primal form, because
you might think about it afterwards, but
right.
It's another thing. But that happens on a daily basis with regular folk.
It's true.
They get all angry, James. They don't even know what they're angry about. And most of the time, if you think about it, if you think it through, and you know what I do? It's sometimes at the end of the day, at the end of the night, I go home, I think, well, how did my day go? What did I do? What did I do right? What did I do wrong? But most of the time, I'm losing my train of thought now. I was going to talk about most of the time, they're not even aware, like they're angry about something they have no control over. Mm-hmm. If you, like what I was going to say is, if you think it through, most things we have no control over, that and we're angry about it or fearful of it, and that's why I say I live in a 2 square mile. I keep my world small. You know what I mean? I don't worry about worldly things and I've been around the world. I've been like 22 countries. So I don't get all wound up about all that stuff. I don't really get distracted by TV. I watch it. I go online for entertainment purposes, but I don't believe, unless I'm there and see it or whatever. So, people get worked up over things they have no control over. Mm-hmm. So I had to learn to just focus on myself and what in my world, and my 2 square mile world, 4 square miles, like you go to work, you go home.
I think that's a part of it, where it's like people are trying to control, and that's what is like where that anger is getting exuded from.
And then
because of the fear of not being in control.
Yeah, well, they're worried about yesterday, right. They're worried about tomorrow, and they miss the whole day. Mm-hmm. Miss the whole day. You know what I mean? Like, I try and stay in the day. You know what I mean? It's and people want to, they want to control everybody, worried about the world. You want to be Jesus or God or whatever you're going. It's a big job. Do you want that?
Right.
You want to be responsible for 1 billion people? Have at it, buddy. Have a nice day. You know what I mean? It's not going to go well. You know what I'm saying? So it's much easier, you know. I mean, we're complicated beings, but it's much easier just to stay in your lane. You know what I mean?
We're
And
so
just,
complicated and simple at the same time.
right. Well, we like to complicate things. This tea is great though. She makes tea, and this is cinnamon tabucus or whatever the hell it is. Tabucus,
Hibiscus.
tobacco. But I never had tea like this. It's better than Lipton,
I'm glad that you're enjoying it.
and it's free if you come to a podcast.
It is. It's true. You know what do you?
So you know, what do I do? I visit nursing homes. That's what I mean, because everybody's old, I know, right? And the funny thing to me is, see, I think we should go to nursing home. I think we go there too late. I think we should go there. Like if I could go back in time, I'd go there when I'm 30. I'll tell you why. You go there, you get 3 meals a day. They got a Craftmatic bed. This is a $5,000 bed. I mean, it does everything. They got movie night, gambling, bingo, this, that. And they got young people washing you. It's like, and then the people are complaining. I went there and said, lady, what are you complaining about? I mean, I want to go there now. They're all complaining. It's like unbelievable. They got it made. It's like a beautiful thing.
You're tripped up.
But then, you know, I used to go there and go, you know, my wife had relatives that are all whatever. And, yeah, but I just try, and like I said, I try and stay in a small world, you know,
Right.
because we're all in 4 or 5 square miles, you know. We don't
And
concern
if
yourself
you're-
with that.
But if you're going to concern yourself with things outside of your 4 square, because I mean, realistically, we have to at times. Make sure that you, to your best capacity, that you
You're
have
learning
what
about
you're
it, the information.
Yes, and also like make sure that you're good, you know, because if it doesn't matter what the situation is going on around you, even if it's something literal, like even if you see something happening, say somebody is about to you know, you can see that they're about to step in a puddle, right? And you see it happening, like they're about to go, they're not paying attention. And you don't take a moment to make sure, like, your feet are on the ground, your shoelaces are tied.
Right.
You're face planting in that puddle along with them. You need to make sure you're good before you make a decision to help anybody else out. And that doesn't mean, like, okay, you have to sit there and assess everything. Like, no, but, like, take a moment. Because I find that a lot of people are so quick to jump into outer worldly things, or you know, even if it's local, or if it's
They want to
or
fix everything.
national or global, where they're trying to jump into something and being a savior of whatever the case is, when they can't even save themselves, or tie their own shoes, or clear up what's going on in front of them. And it's like, well, how do you expect to go? In fact, like, you're putting more of a it's in my opinion, humbly, like, I don't feel like that's common sense. I feel like that's literal. Like, you're putting yourself and others in danger because you're not checking on yourself first. And
Did you ever think that they don't want to?
of course, because it's still a
They
distraction.
want to
a
fix
lot of
everybody.
times,
They're
which is a
not
distraction
all.
from
When we say
themselves.
this, we're just generalizations.
Yeah,
not
of course,
all.
of course. There's room
but
for everything.
There's people that just they don't want to look at themselves. They don't want to fix themselves. And,
So it's easier to I'm gonna help that
fix
person.
that
I'm gonna
guy.
fix this problem. I'm gonna advocate for this. I'm gonna do that.
Everybody wants to play Jesus.
Right. Everyone wants to play God until it's
God,
time to
whatever
literally
it is.
like be accounted for what is going on. You know,
So-
and it's rough. It's rough, especially with this, like, you know, the climate of everything that's going on in the world. Like, all we can do is educate ourselves the best that we can, and literally hope and pray for the best. Do the things that we can to clean up our side of the street, because at the end of the day, we can't clean the streets of everybody and still function. Listen, if you got all the money in the world and you got to worry about working, go ahead, go clean up go clean up all the different things. That's cool, that's fine. But on a normal, average human basis, if you're exuding yourself on a certain degree, and this was something I think I talked about on another podcast recently, because I'm feeling like a reminder of saying the same thing. It's like, if you feel like you're losing your mind going for something or advocating for something, whether it's, even if it's as
Whatever it is,
simple
right.
as
Right.
waiting online and somebody cutting you, I would really advise you to sit with what is actually happening, because yes, it sucks. Is it injustice? Someone's cutting you in line? Yeah, it sucks, and that's annoying, and whatever the case is, and it's okay to advocate for yourself and be like, excuse me, that's wrong. Why are you doing that? But why are you losing your mind over it?
Yeah, like you gotta
That's
think of this
usually
all day long.
right.
I don't let people rent space in my head.
No,
Okay?
it's like you gotta charge rent. Shit is expensive.
I'm not letting people. And there's people they'll be angry all day long. There's men and women that had a bad breakup when they're 14, and they're still carrying that with them.
Right.
I mean, are you out of your mind? You know,
They are
you got to learn to
literally out
let
of
things
their
go.
mind.
Like what I did was, and I believe me, I could go on about. I had a lot of tragedies in my life, and but I keep moving forward because listen, it does only hurts me. It doesn't. It's not helpful to hold on to stuff, and so I process it. I understand what it is. If there's something I could do about it, I do it, or I try and be a better person if it was my transgression. But I don't hold on to that. I mean, it's doing, it's crazy to do that,
Learning the art of like letting go.
There could be a negative thing in somebody's life. They'll carry it their whole lives,
because they don't know what to do with
It could be a 5-minute freaking thing. Like that. Does that really make sense?
They don't know what to do with it, and I find that a lot of people, and this is where I feel as a community, the really important things of like, sometimes we don't get all the tools from our parents because maybe they didn't have them.
No, they don't know.
Maybe they didn't have the tools, but this is why also like, and some of our parents did. And like, this is where community comes in and why it's so important. Just us doing the work for ourselves and understanding how to process certain things and living that, and then also being able to share that with the youth, share that with sometimes not only the youth.
You get onto something very important. You have to be able to ventilate.
Yes.
You have to ventilate. One of the things I do good, that's why I'm running around screaming like, well, look, what's wrong with you? I'm fine. This is the way I am. I just get it out.
Right.
I get it out. I ventilate because, I'm only hurting myself if I hold that stuff in.
Exactly.
I mean, it could be if somebody cut me off. Forget it.
Right.
A second later,
somebody have a fucking stroke.
What am I gonna hold on to that all day long?
Yeah. And that's the thing, like, people don't realize how intertwined it is. We like to look at things as separate.
Say a prayer for them. They're having a rough life.
Right. If they feel like they're so in need of being controlling on the road and have no regard for anyone else's life, you can an educated guess would be this person does not value their own life, and they're so
suffering.
out of control in their life that the only thing they think they can control is their vehicle.
Right, they're suffering.
So why try to bring logic to it, and more so understanding? And it's just like, once again, understanding that and then not holding on to it. Like you said, being able to let it go. Like I always say to people, like if something, like you feel like angry, feel your feelings, because I love one of the quotes that I had read one time is like, anger can sometimes be you sticking up for yourself in against, like it's like you protecting yourself. And I think that sometimes we forget that. We know that that's like normal.
It can be used for good. It's just when it gets to
used for
rage,
good.
then it's
like
off
when
the
it
chart.
becomes irrational, 100%.
Right.
Then you're hurting yourself as well. So anger is not. It's not like don't feel anger. No, feel it. But just also like have it on lock, where it's like, you have your dog on a leash. You're not just letting your dog run wild. Like you have to have your anger on a leash. Like if
that's for sure.
And if you ever get to the point where you feel comfortable to let it off a leash, you better have it well trained.
Listen, even the most timid person, we're all capable
of snapping out.
Serious rage.
100%.
So like you got to get it out. You got to
find some kind of outlet.
You got to have a friend. A couple of good friends. Like I was blessed. I had 2 friends. Like since I'm 9, and I could tell them anything, and I know where they're gonna go anyway. You could find somebody that you could talk to and get it out. And don't life's too good and busy to be worrying about. Most of the time it's things you can't control anyway. It has nothing to do with.
You just need to talk about it.
I'll tell you a funny story. I'll tell you an honest story. I was in a freaking rehab, right, a long time ago, right? And this is hysterical, right? And they said to me, write down what's bothering you, right? Now, I was in a throes of freaking alcoholism and all this shit, right? So I had like a 2-page list, right? I forgot all about it, right? I gave it to the lady, right? And like about a day or two before I left the place, she said to me, she was sitting at a big desk and a nice rug on the floor. She said, read this to me, right? Now, I forgot all about it. I started reading this. All of these things that I wrote down, they had nothing to do with me. I could care less about these issues, you know what I mean, really. But all of that was in my head, you understand? And all of that noise was in my head, man. And I'm like, I'll tell you the truth, I had cramps in my stomach. I was on the floor in front of a desk laughing. It was just like it was comical to me. It was like, see, that's the difference. 1 minute I'm enraged over worldly things. That's why I don't focus on it. And the next minute I'm hysterical laughing because they're not important. They don't even have nothing to do with me.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
when we look at it, it could be silly, but when it's kept in here,
it was real. In my head, it was
really
real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was a little scary, you know what I mean? As an afterthought, but I was hysterical laughing. I had cramps in my stomach on the floor laughing. It was so ridiculous. So crazy noise. It doesn't have to be permanent, is what I'm saying. Like people go through their whole lives permanent, angry, like
I think because
triggered by any little thing, and
they don't know what to do with it. They don't know where to put it.
I think that's what it is because they're not like. I guess they don't have a friend to release it or find a church or something. Find somebody. You know what I mean? Like, but
I think that certain personality traits mixed with certain traumas can be cause for more of like an accumulation of like an isolation aspect where it's like they don't trust. I've observed people. I observe people, just throughout life. I just find humans fascinating, and like in interactions with different people, I find that the people that tend to hold on to the most things and not feel comfortable to speak on, it's like some kind of combination. I'm not going to get astrological and I won't get homeopathic. I'll just kind of stay here.
You're gonna lose the 6 people that are watching.
I know.
We only got 6 people, Ashley. We got to keep them on board.
Keep them here. But, I find that there's usually some kind of combination of things that has happened, and also certain personality traits and who they are in their core that can lead to not feeling safe to let things out. And then but some people find outlets, like, whether it's like working out or, but I still think that's good, that you can find the outlet, but also
that's one way of doing it. Yeah.
But processing it, right? Like some people just, I think that, when we talk about modern therapy, it's just talk therapy and medication, right? There's not an integration aspect. Like
no nutrition, no exercise, nothing. It's just how can I make money? I'm selling you a freaking this or that.
And also community. If you live life and you feel like you can't trust anyone, then you don't trust yourself, because you literally can't trust yourself and trust no one at the same time. Like, if you're like, I don't trust anyone.
That's a horrible way. That's a horrible way to go through your life.
It's sad. It's sad, really. It's like that person is saying, nobody ever gave me a reason to trust them because everybody I've ever trusted hurt me. That's exactly what I hear when I hear somebody say that. It makes me sad, and I just, and with, once again, common sense can really just be considering others in interactions. Considering our actions, how they're going to affect ourselves and others. I truly believe in its core, at least for me, my perception of common sense is that.
Yeah.
Because it's
if you want to feel good about yourself, random acts of kindness. Expected nothing. Random acts of kindness. I got to tell you a funny story about the gym, because that's one way of getting exercise. But like, you could, even if you don't have money, you could do things, everything. I do a lot of things for free, and I got money. Go to the beach, swim, walk, but I went to, this is a funny story. Like, this was years ago, though. I don't do it anymore, but I didn't have any money at the time I was working, but I went into Dick's Sporting Goods, and in the back there, they have an entire display of gymnasium equipment. So I just started working out there. And free. I just went there like 3 times a week. And I started working out there. Like, so there's a tip for you guys. If you got no money, didn't cost me. In fact, how I got jammed up was I started selling gym memberships. And I would have people meet me in the parking lot for $5. I tell them, just go in there. And they were really pissed. And then the manager was really pissed. Well, that's how that ended. But what I'm just saying, there's ways you could find, like, it's not about money. You could find a good friend.
Creative. Yeah.
Like anything to help you relax. Play chess.
Anything
to but stop watching. Don't stare at your phone all day long and look at all these worldly disasters. Boom, boom. Because there's nothing positive. They say, and expect yourself to be like happy for the day. Breaks. You know what I mean? Yeah, like, gee, what a wonderful world. Don't just shut the world. There's the world right there. I got a flip phone. This is the smartest phone in the world. Mm-hmm. And then I got friends. They want to text me conversations, right? But we have phone. We could talk now. I mean, texting is good in certain situations, but they want to have the entire conversation, like pages long. And I'm like, what's next? Smoke signals? We're gonna go to that? I mean, we're going backwards. Right. So like, shut the noise off. Shut it off, man. Like find a good friend. If you're lonely, you get a puppy. But Jesus Christ, don't let yourself go nuts over worldly events. Believe us, we're fine in this country. We're blessed with being safe. We got the badass boys and girls watching us. Nobody's gonna touch us, so you don't gotta worry about that. Let them do whatever the hell they do, whatever, And I don't get crazy over things like that anymore. I keep a real small world, couple of small friends, some acquaintances, and I stay around positive people. If they go negative on you, you can give them a pass. They might be having a bad day. But if they're doing that 3 out of 5 days a week, you might want to find a new friend. You know what I mean? Because they're just going to make you, it's depressing. Who the hell wants to be around that? But, yeah, there's plenty of free stuff to do, though. You don't need money, Time. Time is the most important thing, My favorite time with my grandfather was me, him, and my brother in the East Bronx River taking a crap in the woods. That's my favorite memory. Didn't cost nothing. And I can't get that out of my head, by the way. Jeez, it's like PTSD over it. But no, I'm just saying, because I have a lot of friends that got divorced, they got killed, they got no money. Take your kid to the beach, bro. You know what I mean? Take him to the walk in the woods. I mean, kids playing dirt. You know what I mean? Like, I played in dirt with your father and all the we didn't have 5 cents. So it's not about money. You know what I mean?
It's about common sense.
Like, Jesus. Find something to do, bro. You know what I mean? Like, oh, man. You don't need money. We didn't have money back then. It's all the same stuff. You go back in the world history, it just repeats itself. You know why it repeats itself? Not because it's forgotten. It's never taught. So, but don't worry about that stuff. You know what I mean? Stay in your lane. You know what I mean? It's much easier.
If you were to give, I mean, we didn't get to fully touch on it in this episode, but maybe we'll have another one.
I gotta go home. It's over.
I think we're coming to the end of it.
This tea works good.
Well, I wanted to ask you, if you were to give a message or advice to your younger self, what's something that you would let him know?
I would tell him, don't be afraid. It's going to be okay. I would tell him, be patient and focused on the little things. Like you know what? I just read this the other day. $8 a day, you can have a couple grand a year. So people buy a coffee for like what, $8 now?
Yeah, it's like $8.
So it's little steps that get you to big things. Mm-hmm. Even the guys that most successful trucking business, they start with a rickety truck. Mm-hmm. So just nice and easy. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself. You want to feel good about yourself, do random acts of kindness. And give yourself a break. Have compassion for yourself. Right? And if nobody told you they love you, Johnny wins again told you. Yeah, and it's all you can do. Take it easy, one step at a time. You know, you're not living your whole life in one day. You know what I mean? And don't project. Project. I used to project that how I was going to spend my pension check and everything like that when I was young. And at the time, I didn't even have a job, so I don't. You know what I mean? That's where projection gets you. So try not to do that. But be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and it'll be okay. There's nothing new going on in the world. It's all goes around and around and around. And
Cycled and repackaged.
focus on your health and good friends, and stay away from doctors.
Well, thank
That's
you.
in a whole nother episode.
It's a whole other, yeah,
that's
it's
a whole.
other
That's a
pocket.
2-hour
Yeah,
job.
that might be more.
And,
Yeah, but yeah,
yeah.
no, for sure. Well,
I'm shocked an hour went by.
yeah, it flies. It's like it's literally just locking in and sitting here and just having the conversation.
Yeah,
Forgetting
yeah.
that this exists.
I know
This
about
exists,
it.
and then we're just like in it. But is there anything else that you wanted to share before we go?
No, I'd like to get in my car and go home now.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing, your words, your perspectives and bits and pieces of your story of life. It's important.
Oh, remember, one more thing. There's no future in the past. That's a saying I made up. In other words, let the past be the past. Understand it and move on. There's no reason to hold on to that. There's a big, bright future for all of us. So
Well,
tomorrow's another day. Tomorrow's another podcast. And make sure you get Ashley tea, because this is good stuff. There's tobacco, hibiscus, freaking cinnamon, all kinds of shit in
I
here.
have to call it Ashley T now. Well, thank you so much, Don. I appreciate it for you to, share your perspectives and everything. And we'll see you
Good to
next
the last
time.
drop. Thank you.
We'll see you next time, and hopefully you'll be on again.